If you were there when they signed the Constitution, pages 65 to 74. How can we change the Constitution? The delegates wanted their Constitution to last. They wanted people in the future to have a way to change the government without having another revolution. They wanted their new Constitution to be easier to change than the old Articles of Confederation, which had said that nothing could be changed unless every single state agreed. The Constitution spells out two ways it can be changed. One way would be to take the major changes and to call another convention. It would take 2/3 of the states to call one. This method has never been used. The second way is to amend the Constitution. What is an amendment? An amendment is a specific change in the Constitution. There have been amendments to end slavery and to give women the vote. All in all, we have approved only 27 amendments. It is not easy to change the Constitution with an amendment. An amendment has to be approved by 2/3 of both the state and the House of Representatives. Then it is taken to the states where it has to be voted on by either the state legislature or a special convention. 3/4 of all the states must pass an amendment before it becomes part of the Constitution. What was missing from the Constitution? There was no Bill of Rights in the original Constitution. A Bill of Rights protects you, the individual, from the power of your government. The idea of a Bill of Rights, a list of things that the government cannot do, goes way back in English history, back to 1215, when the English lords made King John sign the Magna Carta. What are some of the rights in the Bill of Rights? One of the rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights is freedom of religion. Under English rule, many colonists did not enjoy freedom to worship as they pleased. When James Madison was a young man in Virginia, the Church of England was the colony's official church. Baptists and Methodists were often thrown into jail. After the Revolution, the state government of Virginia declared that all people should be free to worship as they choose. They made freedom of religion part of their Bill of Rights. The Virginia Bill of Rights also said that all men were free and equal. It forbade cruel and unusual punishment. It gave all people the right to trial by jury. Many other states copied the Virginia Bill of Rights into their own constitutions. Why didn't the delegates put a Bill of Rights into the Constitution? The issue of a Bill of Rights came up when the delegates were almost finished writing the Constitution. Everyone was tired. George Mason was the author of the Virginia Bill of Rights. He was at the Philadelphia Convention, and he wanted the Constitution to have a Bill of Rights, too. He felt the most important job that the Constitution had to do was to make sure that government did not have too much power. Many delegates said it was enough that the 13 states had the Bill of Rights. They voted not to put one in. Later, they regretted not putting it in. How the convention ended. By September, the delegates were ready to go home. The delegates voted to give everything that they had done to a committee to see if the writing was clear and understandable. Governor Morris was known as the best writer, so the committee gave the job to him. He wasn't supposed to change things, just check the spelling and grammar. But Morris was not above putting in a few of his own words. Just look at what he did with the very first line. It had read, "We the people of the states of North Carolina, Virginia, Massachusetts, etc." Morris changed it to, "We the people of the United States." What a difference. Because Morris was right. If the Constitution was accepted, we would be a people, united by our new law. What happened when the delegates signed the Constitution? On September 17th, the day that they were all to sign the Constitution, Benjamin Franklin had written a speech. He tried to get up to give it, but he felt too weak. He asked his friend and fellow delegate from Philadelphia, James Wilson, to read it for him. Franklin said that there were many things the Constitution he didn't agree with, but many a time in my life I have been absolutely sure I was right, only to change my mind a year or two later. Some people never change their minds. They are always rather ridiculous. I once knew a dowager who told me her sister said to her, "I don't know how it happens, sister, but I meet with nobody but myself. That is always in the right." Luther Martin and many other delegates who didn't like the Constitution had already gone home. Only 3 delegates who were there refused to sign. George Mason refused to sign the Constitution because it had no Bill of Rights. Edmund Randolph of Virginia always had a hard time making up his mind, and he refused. He was worried he might be on the wrong side. Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts also refused, but people called him a grumbleton, someone who always grumbled. One by one, the other delegates 39 in all came forward to sign the document. Each dipped the quill pen into the ink bottle and wrote his name carefully. Finally, George Washington had to get up from his chair to write his name. Benjamin Franklin looked at the empty chair. Franklin said, "Painters have always had a hard time showing the difference between a rising and a setting sun. I have often," he said, "looked at that sun behind the president without being able to tell whether it was rising or setting. But now I have the happiness to know that it is a rising and not a setting sun." How did the 13 states approve or ratify the new Constitution? The Constitution had been written in secret. Now the delegates were going to find out what everyone else thought. The delegates knew how hard it was to get all the 13 states to agree on anything. They said the Constitution had to be approved by just 9 states in order to become the law of the land. They had come a long way. When they met in May, they were not even sure that they should write a constitution. Now, not only had one, but they were saying it would go into effect, even if all the states wouldn't agree. Each state would have an election for delegates to a convention to vote yay or nay on the Constitution. Newspapers published the Constitution, and almost everyone had an opinion about it, good or bad. George Washington called it a novel, an astonishing spectacle of the whole people deliberating calmly on what form of government will be most conducive to their happiness. Many people didn't like the Constitution because it had no Bill of Rights. "We promised to put one in," said some supporters of the Constitution, and that was indeed one of the first things the new government did. They are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution added in 1791. Many people thought things were fine under the Articles of Confederation, but the people who wanted the Constitution had a big advantage over the people who didn't like it. The Constitution was exciting because it was new and it was written down. All those who didn't like it could just grumble about what they didn't like. This is the end of today's lesson.